Conquer the Noise is a podcast produced by Unconquered, an independent agency challenging brand perspective through redefined content. This podcast is dedicated to telling stories of outstanding ideas and people who have found their way amongst the chatter. I'm Jonathan Hansen, Chief Creative Officer at Unconquered, and I'm your host of Cultivating Purpose and Passion in Business. Today, we are speaking with Emma Rose Cohen, CEO and founder of Final. I'm pretty familiar with Final Straw just through the research I've been doing, reading quite a bit about you in the company you've started. But some of our listeners at home may not be as familiar. So, I would love to hear your elevator pitch of what Final Straw is and does.
Sure. So first off, thanks so much for having me. And so Final is on a mission to end single-use plastic waste by providing individuals with the tools that they need so that they can take responsibility and reduce those single-use plastic items on a day-to-day basis. So our first product was called Final Straw, and it's a reusable, collapsible straw that fits in a little keychain. You guys can't see it, but it is super cute, kind of has like a little AirPods vibe, and it pops out, deploys like magic, and you can suck on the go. It also comes with a little cleaning device. So, because that's everyone's first question is how do you clean it? So boom, that's how you do it. And, for us, it's like, how do we make sustainability sexy and fun and convenient and design forward? I think there's this old stigma that, it's like really granola and kind of crunchy hippie vibe. And that's not sustainability today. Sustainability today is what all the cool kids are doing because it's the right thing to do. And this is our one and only planet. So we should probably treat it like it is.
And I think you actually corrected me there. I went with your early name, Final Straw, but as you've unrolled your product offering is now called Final. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. We also double as a assassination service. So either one.
So what got you into your early, obsession with some of the issues of why you created, which is going to be, one-use, single-use plastics?
Yeah. So I went to University of California at Santa Barbara. And as anyone who's familiar with the school knows, we're very studious, no extracurriculars. Well, actually, no, it's quite the opposite. Like, it's just such an insane party school. And, we were drinking all the time and just like, there's trash everywhere. And I just remember going out one morning and looking around and the campus is beautiful. It's on the beach and all of the trash that like ends up from the partying ends up on the beach. And it's unreal. And I'm like, I just kind of felt this really big disconnect with like, I'm in this school in, with the purpose of like getting a higher education to figure out how am I going to contribute to society. And at the same time, like my actions are actually like harming the environment in a really big way. And so I got obsessed with plastic because it's this amazing material that's designed to last forever. And when used in the right application is great. We use it all the time and it's really created a ton of advancements in the world. But when used in a single use context and it's designed to last forever, there's a problem there because it just persists in our environment.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems I have, as you said, with plastic is there's such a convenience factor and it's in everything. But at the same time, it's also just everywhere and destroying oceans. And I think, one of my first experiences really was seeing the damage of plastic is when I traveled abroad and went through Southeast Asia, Northeast Africa, and just saw tons of plastic floating in waterways, on beaches. And ever since then, I've been really kind of keyed into it. And just in our own business, we've tried to eliminate single-use plastic as much as possible. But it's just one of those things that has become so culturally ingrained. I think it's going to take a bunch of baby steps before we get to addressing the larger issues around plastic. And so, with the idea of like baby steps, what are some of the baby steps that you're taking to help take Final further in its mission to reducing plastic use?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And I also, was very inspired by traveling and seeing the waste. But, the only difference between when you travel and see the waste and here is that we have a way of putting it away.
Yeah.
we've got this like magical land of away. No, no, no. They're just landfills and it's still going
Hmm.
somewhere. And a lot of that is still ending up in the ocean. So, that's really the only difference. It's not that we're creating less waste. In fact, we're creating more. But I think that in order to take these baby steps, we need to work in two different modalities. So both in a top down and a bottom up. So really what we do at Final in terms of like our education and awareness is, we're activating the community. We're saying, look, I know this is a really big, scary problem that's like overwhelming and intense, but here is a straw or a spork or, a reusable wipe. And that's how you can start taking those steps today. Now, from
Okay.
there, what that does is that increases awareness and it starts to change social norms. And that's how you create a behavior change on a much larger scale. And then, the way we're really going to shift the needle, because, we have so many people who are like, oh, you can get rid of all the plastic straws. We still have trash. And we're like, yeah, duh, we know. Like plastic straws are a tiny, tiny fraction of single use plastic. But like, where do you want to start? Like, should we start with the
Hmm.
easy things or the hard things? I personally think it's a lot easier to start with these. So why not? And get people
Hmm.
on board and then get people supporting legislation that requires companies to be held responsible for the waste that they create. So this is that top down, legislative effect and policy driven approach that will really start to shift the needle. But first, we need the right officials in office and we need the
Hmm.
community supporting this policy.
So, I mean, as a mission-based business, and one that obviously has to have its own sustainability, i.e., bottom line, just to survive and continue doing what you do. There's a lot of marketing that goes around that, and there's a lot of getting the word out about the brand and the mission. And I would love to hear about some of your marketing strategies. We have a lot of our listeners who are entrepreneurs themselves, starting businesses, and really trying to, you know, get notice, get the word out about their own brands. So how are you doing that?
Yeah. So, what first kind of struck me about the whole sustainability sector is that it was so dry. And it was like, do we seriously need to always communicate the message in like a Sarah McLaughlin kind of like, ASPCA way? I don't think so. I think that there is a way to tell this story that is engaging and exciting and invigorating and fun. So, our angle is really just kind of around my sense of humor. I have the same sense of humor as a 14-year-old boy. And so, like, when you check out our memes on our Instagram, it's just like, silly, kind of dumb stuff. But like, for me, I align way more with messaging that uses humor. And I think that feels more empowering versus, just laying down the facts and saying good
Yeah.
luck. So, in terms of like how to craft your own personal marketing, I think it's really just about telling your own story. What is unique and special about you and the way that you see the problem that you're trying to solve, and use that as your lens. The other big kind of advice I give people is don't tell your story to like everyone. So imagine a room with like three important people that you want to talk to and tell
Mm.
your story to them. So you can make it really personal, because if you're gearing your story towards a wide range of people, it's going to get dumbed down, it's going to get vague, it's not going to be as spicy. And instead, if you talk to a specific individual, then it's going to feel much more directed.
I had to give you props for the mermaid commercial you have on your website. Is that a direct from your like sense of personality, creativity? Were you heavily involved in that?
Yeah, so there's a funny story for the mermaid. So that actually goes back to my days in college,
Hmm.
where my girlfriends and we used to love going to music festivals and like, dressing up, and we made all of these mermaid outfits. And so
Hmm.
one day we were like, wait, why don't we like put them on and go do beach cleanup? So we put on our mermaid outfits, did a beach cleanup, and it was so fun. And so many people got involved, and like, there's music and it was this whole thing. And I was like, oh, wait, like this is how you can attract a crowd and tell a story. The mermaid is obviously the connection between humans and the ocean. And
Hmm.
so from there, it was this evolution of actually creating a nonprofit called Save the Mermaids, where we did environmental education and like single-use plastic awareness for kids, and after-school programs and trips out to the Channel Islands, and
Hmm.
so the mermaid for me has always been this kind of like blend of fantasy and reality. And I think, because the problems we're up against right now are so massive, like we have to believe in a little bit of magic and like, and
100. Yeah.
have that kind of like fun aspect of it. Otherwise it's just, you're going to go hide under your covers and cry.
You can still that too, as long as you get out and still act right.
Yeah.
So, I think the one thing around like music and festivals, and what I'm hearing a lot from you is like there's a strong sense of community involved in one, the business and who you're aiming it at for, and also building on one. But going back to our discussion a little bit about around marketing, what role do you think marketing has in driving community and culture?
I mean, marketing is huge. It's telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I think every CEO kind of has a different area where they focus their time, and I'm definitely a marketing CEO because that's
Mm-hmm.
where my passion is. And I guess I kind of split my time between marketing and product because I'm very heavily involved in the
Mm-hmm.
creation of the products. But final straw without a story is just another reusable straw, and instead we've built this big, massive community that supports us, that loves our brand, that loves what we do, they love what we stand for, and they want to see more companies like us in the world because we're not just selling a product. We're involved with 1%. We're making long-lasting partnerships with other brands. We're really trying to do more than just sell a straw because
Mm-hmm.
that's not the point. The point isn't to just sell products. The point is to actually change human behavior so that we can really make a difference in the plastic pollution epidemic that we have.
Mm-hmm. I spent some time on your Instagram, and it's great. And I'm really curious to, what you're learning about your community from like the engagement that you get. Are you taking these learnings and then, I guess you could say reinvesting that into the way you're talking to your customers? Or I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. Okay. So you mean the final Instagram, not mine personally. Okay.
Exactly.
I was like, uh-oh. So yeah, I mean, I think that we're always, keeping an ear to the ground, and social listening is so important.
Mm-hmm.
You're working for your fans. You're doing this for
Mm-hmm.
the community. And it's like, if I'm working on something that the community doesn't want, then what's the point? Then I'm just making another pointless product, and we already have, 1.5 trillion of those in the world. So, we are meeting, at least weekly and diving into the social, the entire social network and looking at how are things performing, how are people responding, down to a single comment.
Mm-hmm.
Is this comment here? If we get a negative comment on maybe like a political post that we've done, because we've been getting political. Like, holy heck, this has been a huge election, and as a company that stands for the environment, we can't just sit by and say like, vote for whoever you want. It's like, no. Like, there's really clear lines, and unfortunately, the environment has gotten politicized, which is just a whole other topic. But yeah, I think just listening to your fans and
Mm-hmm.
your community is so important, and always making sure that you're answering their questions and then gearing the marketing towards what people are saying. If a lot of people are asking the same question, well, that means you probably need to beef up the information on your website.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You touched on a little bit about 1% for the planet. How long have you been with them? Is that something you implemented from like day one, or is it something that you've been gradually working towards?
That's been pretty much day one.
Yeah.
When we hit, I was already gonna always do it, but when we launched the Kickstarter, when I was like, well, why don't we make it like a thing when we hit $1 million? So,
Uh-huh.
we hit that number, I think, in like the first 2 weeks or so. So it's always been so important to me, to make sure that we're not just a company focused on creating a product. Because like as a startup, it's really hard to focus on other things. You're so driven towards, paying your bills,
Yep.
and the idea of giving away, like people are like, oh, like you only do 1%. I'm like, yeah, that's actually a lot of money.
It does. It has
That's
a fast, and especially over a long period of time.
yeah.
It's no something to laugh at. And I think what I love about the idea of just 1% is like it's obtainable. It's a small number that you can start with, and that's kind of the way I look at some of the products at Final. And when I see them, I'm like, this is a great way to like start making efforts to larger behavioral changes, which you touched on earlier. Um, so what nonprofits are you supporting through 1%? Are they all geared towards ocean cleanup, or do you have other passions you're sort of helping support?
Yeah. So, our first couple years doing 1%, we were, first of all, just getting hit up by so many different places to donate. And so, we had an entire position of the company towards partnerships. And it was a lot of work to manage.
Mhm.
And, we still will donate to other people with incoming donations. But I realized that we are kind of like spreading everything really thin, and instead of
Mhm.
focusing all of our efforts in one area, we were kind of like doing a little here, a little there. So this year I decided to focus our efforts and partner with Habits of Waste.
Mhm.
And they are amazing. They really focus on policy change, which is
Mhm.
where, I want to be involved. I think that without policy change, nothing is ever going to actually change. So it's really important to me to work with nonprofits that are pushing that forward, and where we can just help with the marketing, help by rallying our community behind their messaging. And we have once a month calls where we go through their, the different initiatives that they're working on. We talk about wording, we talk about different social activations. So I think we kind of have the marketing team, which is really strong, and they've got amazing connections, and they've done so much work already and had such huge successes that it's a really good synergy.
You strike me as one who is does things your own way. You struck me as one who doesn't just sort of fit the cookie cutter, and sort of questions a lot, which I think is at the heart of a lot of entrepreneurs. And I'm curious to how, when you bring in team members and you hire and you grow your internal community, how you're like finding people that value imagination, that value curiosity, and sort of these other sort of values that you personally hold, while nurturing them, and allowing mistakes. I think that's one of the
Mm.
crucial things personally for you know evolution and innovation, is allowing your team or yourself even to make mistakes. So how, and that's a pretty loaded question. I asked you a lot of questions inside one. So I would love just to hear you talk through some of that.
Yeah. Well, first off, you hit the nail on the head. I definitely, um, I think I am a really good problem solver because I am not conventional in the way that I look at things.
Hmm.
And, one of my least favorite things for someone to say is when I ask, why did we do it that way? Is, oh, well, that's how it's always been done. Like,
Hmm.
I just want to pull my hair out. And because obviously the way it's always been done has not always driven success.
Hmm.
So, in terms of hiring, I go through a very lengthy process. We have a whole bunch of, success matrices and different ways that we're rating people. I give people projects that they then have to complete to show exactly, like basically a makeup task. And then they have to go through and do the whole task. And then, I have surveys that I give people with like super random, weird questions like, if you could be anything, what do you want to be when you grow up? And like, what are the kind of problems that keep you up at night? Because I think that there's obviously so much more to just being able to like do a job. It has
Hmm.
to be a culture fit, and you also have to get a sense of passion from that
Hmm.
person. Like, are they the kind of person that stays up at night thinking about things, and what are those problems and how do they want to solve them, and making sure that people do have these kind of multifaceted ways of expression and interaction with others. So then on your point on mistakes, I mean, geez, when you have a startup, it's daily, weekly, monthly, and you're just measuring the size of the mistakes. So, what I've started doing is now when a mistake is made, we bring it to our team meeting and we talk it through, and we'll develop an SOP, so like a standard operating procedure around that. Everyone gets a chance to talk about it. Hey, this isn't a time to point fingers at all. This isn't like you messed up, you're an idiot. Like, not at all. Like, if you're still on the team, it's because I believe in you and because I think that you are capable of doing the best version of your job. So, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what went wrong, first of all, and where were the miscommunications. We've been a remote team since day one. So it's like, this is like most companies are like, whoa, remote, it's crazy. And we're like, yeah, it is. But like, you have to, embed so many different kind of cultural practices around communication that are like artificial in a sense, because if you were just all in an office together, you would like, see each other's pets. And like, so instead we have a Slack channel called Pet Squad where we like post pictures of our pets and like,
I love that.
I think, and like a channel for wins where we're highlighting when someone does something great. So, I think kind of on the other side of mistakes is wins. So how are you celebrating the wins? How are you highlighting when someone does something amazing and really, celebrating that? Because I remember in my previous job, like my boss never told me good job. And then this one day he was like, good job. And I seriously worked 10 times as hard. It was like, oh my God. Like, and so, it just feels good. It feels good to be appreciated.
It does.
And it feels, and it's not just me doing that, it's everyone.
Yeah, we've been remote as well since our founding. We founded in a similar time, around 2016, 2017. It's a little bit different as far as industries, as far as marketing and advertising and how it gets affected by the pandemic and everything. But I feel like having these sort of founding the business with a mission, with priorities and purpose has really sort of set clear pathways for us, even during these really difficult times. And when we founded it with the same sort of intention that we were really sick of just the same way business was being done. I mentioned earlier that I was a photographer in the past, and my business partner is as well. And our relationship with agencies at the time we never felt respected. Creative process wasn't necessarily respected, and we really wanted to try and honor the team and honor the creative process more. And I think it's really made us a better agency as a result of it. But I do find the celebrating and the challenges of remote work. It can feel hard when you can't get together. So I think the idea of like the Slack channel is really smart as far as having like celebrate your pet. Everyone loves their pets. I have 2 amazing dogs who are like my children. But I think just one thing for us that we're consistently trying to work towards is fostering our relationships together and doing it in a way that still feels personal, even though we're like on a video chat 300 miles apart from each other.
Totally.
Are you hosting happy hours, or how else are you building some of that internal community amongst your team?
Yeah. So, we have our kind of all hands meeting on Tuesdays where it's like very data driven, measured off of KPIs and OKRs and really diving into the details. And then on Thursdays, we kind of have our more like, I guess you could say spiritually grounded meetings. I'll assign a podcast or a book reading or, just kind of bring up a topic that I want to discuss. And those are much looser meetings that are, very much about the culture and any sort of, thought leaders that I've been reading or researching. I'll bring them to the team because, for me, it's like entrepreneurship is about business development, but it's also very much about personal development and leadership skills. And so you have to, bring those to the team, because everyone should be developing at, a somewhat similar pace. And so if I'm doing all of this reading and learning over the weekend, I want to make sure that I bring that to the team, and then they get to kind of like come on that journey with me.
And not to put you on the spot, but what are some of those things that you're sharing right now that you, I mean, I would love to know just for myself to hear what you're reading and trying to share.
Yeah. So I just finished the Surrender Experiment, which was really, really great. And I've been bringing a lot of the learnings from that. What else? I always listen to How I Built This, and I'll bring those stories in, because I think, when you're going through tough times, it's really good to remember that every company has, and that every company has struggled. And so I'll bring those stories, and then we'll kind of dissect, look, how did they get through that? How did they kind of pivot? What can we learn from that situation? Different Tim Ferriss podcasts always are amazing. There's one of the best podcast episodes that I've ever listened to was with Brene Brown and Harriet Lerner. And it was about apologizing. And I had my whole team listen to that, and we talked all the way through it. Not even because it wasn't even just about apologizing. It was about listening. It was about forgiveness. It was about bringing your higher self to a conversation. It's a 2-part series, and it's absolutely life-changing. I think it's so good.
Well, I would say, just from my own relationship and having a significant other who I've been living with now for over a year, I would definitely agree with the apologizing being key to listening. And I think really a lot of the time is the apology is part of the reflection of what you heard, right? So I think that's actually really insightful. That's kind of an aha moment there.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking about personal passion,
you guys should both listen to it.
When you were talking about like personal passion, how are you using that to get through like tough times at final and through the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, this year has been hard. I'll be so honest. Like 2018 and 2019, it's like I couldn't do anything wrong. We were just like on this like rocket ship, like we were printing money, and then the pandemic hit, and it was like, turns out travel straws aren't an essential, and business really slowed. So, I think I maintain my passion through balance. I spend a lot of time in the outdoors. I mountain bike, I ski, I climb. I, kind of am always trying to push my edge physically. And so I think that, I don't know, it helps ground me in a way that at least lets me like release my angst. But sometimes I just have to fake it. Because like I had someone once tell me, the energy you bring into a meeting is the energy the meeting will take on. And it's so true. Like if I'm in a bad mood, the whole team is in a bad mood at the end of the day. And it sucks because I'm like, why can't I be, not at my best for once? And it's like, no, I really do have to be so careful about the tone and what the energy I'm bringing. Am I like texting on my phone? Because I have like the worst ADD, so I'll be like all scattered, and then everyone's like, she's not even paying attention, and it's like that. I know that's been challenging for the team, and what's really good is that we do these like 360 leadership reviews. And so I'll have my team just like fill out a survey on me. And then it's like, I get all the info back and I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. I need to work on a lot, but it's really a great way to improve if you're actually serious about wanting to be the best leader you can be. And like, also it's kind of like cool because like, when was the last time you had, 10 people who work with you on a day-to-day basis tell you in detail what they think about you anonymously. So that no holding back. Yeah,
that's gotta be, well, kudos to you for not taking it personal. I can imagine that there's a borderline there where, your initial reaction may be to clench up and take it personal.
Yeah.
that greater good. And honestly, ADD is one of those things that I've struggled with my whole life. And I have found that once I got out of school and was able to create like my own work systems, my own processes, and enter the creative world, the creative world kind of embraced it a lot more so than like other structured work environments. Um, I imagine at final, your life is very different than pre-final when, um, before you started the company. And I'm curious to how, like having now, being a CEO, being responsible for, is it 18 employees?
Uh, like, I mean, with contractors and everything, yeah, probably about 15.
Yeah, 15 people. And there's just a lot of balls in there. How are you, like, do you have any strategies that you implement to try and keep
Yeah.
focused? I know just getting up and moving every 30 minutes helps me, but
Mm.
what are you doing?
Yeah, definitely a lot of balls. So first off is my morning practice. That's like crucial. I wake up, I make my bed, I drink a glass of warm lemon water, and I meditate. And depending on how much time I have, like sometimes I'll pull some oracle cards and journal a little bit. I'm not like super woo woo, but pulling oracle cards is so fun because no matter what card you pull, it's like you're gonna get a really good lesson of something
Hmm.
that you can bring into your day. So
Hmm.
I really love doing that. It's fun and it kind of makes me feel a little witchy and just brings a good start to the day. And then I usually work out at lunchtime these days. It kind of changes, especially with the time change. I'm kind of a midday workout. And
Hmm.
then blocking off time for tasks that require my like full mental energy and just turning off notifications, because if I have
Hmm.
notifications on, like, I'm done, it's over. I accidentally didn't turn off my text noties on this call, and it's like, like,
Yeah.
you gotta just like limit the distractions, put the blinders on, and give yourself an opportunity to really dive into the task.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part about working remote is a lot of the communication is through messaging, Google text message, whatever your platform is, Slack. Um, and it's really hard. I've been finding it really hard to like spend and take undisturbed, like deep thought, which is often needed, I think, when you're really trying to like chart the course of something, or even just manage the day to day of tasks of getting through stuff. So I have found turning that stuff off helps a lot as well.
Totally.
Um, so when you are working with your team remotely, um, how does that affecting the I guess the time management there? I've read some companies like really clamp down and are trying to monitor everything, or are you really trusting with your team and letting them um, just sort of get it done and get it done?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely more about outcome versus output. So
Yeah.
measuring we spend quite a bit of time at the beginning of every quarter, marking out goals, creating OKRs, and kind of breaking those down into a month by month to do list. So, in our Monday meetings, we're working out of those. We use Monday.com as a task management,
Hmm.
and we're really working out of that board, and people are checking in on where they are progress wise and reporting to the team. I did have some issues with time and wondering where people are, like if they're not on Slack, like what are you doing? And so I had people doing some time management and are recording their time, and it did not go over well. People were like, I
Hmm.
don't feel like you trust me. This, doesn't feel like the culture we want. And so, I took those thoughts into consideration and I stopped doing it, because ultimately,
Hmm.
like, if someone is not doing their job, I should know that, without knowing exactly how many hours they have to spend on a task. It's either getting
Hmm.
done or it's not.
Hmm. Yeah, and part of the reason why I asked is I think it all ties back to sustainability and culture, and like what practices do you have in your business to keep either morale high, what's going to keep that sustainable, what's going to keep the culture sustainable. Um, it's always this balancing act between between fighting, like maybe what your instincts are and what you're listening to, and what the social listening you're doing to your team. Um, I would love to, which I think kind of like touches a little bit on empathy, and I see
Mm,
a lot around your product in some ways of being empathetic towards the environment, and empathetic just towards our daily habits, and like knowing that change isn't overnight; it takes baby steps. Um, so how do you see empathy as being a part of your leadership, your in your
mm.
community at Final?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And, empathy is what unites us as humans. And
Hmm.
ultimately, like, what I love about Final is that it doesn't matter what your, political, social, spiritual beliefs are. We're all united under the belief that this is our one beautiful, amazing, spectacular planet. And we should treat it with the love and care it deserves. So, it's like, though I did mention we were getting political on some posts, like it was really cool that we had people on the other side,
Hmm.
arguing back. And it's like, that's what you want. You don't want a community that is entirely on one side of things, because that doesn't represent humanity. That's not who we are as a country, as a world. So I think the more that we start to empathize with the other side, with the trauma that each side has, and why they form these beliefs, that we will be able to come to this common ground, because there is nothing political about saving the environment. We all drink the same water, breathe the same air, and live on the same soil. So
Hmm.
it's unfortunate that this has become a left versus right kind of thing. But I think that, especially with this kind of new chapter that we're going into, that there will be a lot more uniting under this empathy and compassion for everyone.
Hmm. I think it's beautifully said. Um, as we start to wrap up a bit on time here, I would love to talk through some just like zero waste initiatives. We kind of touched on it earlier, about making companies responsible for what they're putting out, and I think that's a great step. But what do you think are some of the first steps, and how do you think it's changing now that more people are working from home, especially as far as their waste generation goes?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, as soon as the pandemic hit, plastic pollution lost its spotlight in headlines and became
Yeah.
a kind of distant idea. So it's been really unfortunate to see, the rise of single-use plastics as a result of the pandemic. But I understand that safety of human life is obviously the most important thing. But at least with the reusable bags in grocery stores, there was absolutely no evidence that showed that they increased contamination at all. So that was all
Mhm.
just kind of pushed by the plastics companies to get people using single use again. And it was really unfortunate, because I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Like, the bags aren't the things carrying the virus, the human is. So, like, let the bags in without the humans or something.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
It doesn't make sense. And then obviously, delivery waste has skyrocketed as well. But I think that there's a lot of things that just kind of had to be done. People couldn't go out to restaurants as much, and ultimately, we do need to change the materials that we're using for packaging food, and that's something that I'm really interested in and looking in for the future.
Mhm.
How can we make these materials more sustainable and potentially reusable? So yeah, long way to go, but I think it's one thing we do well is give you small tools. So, carrying a reusable straw or reusable spork is at least one less single-use plastic thing you have to use. And hopefully we can continue to broaden our line soon, so that it'll be really easy. And that's the whole thing. If we can just make it convenient, if we can make the more sustainable decisions easier, more people will make those choices.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, Emma. I appreciate your time today, and best of luck.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Sure thing. Thank you so much for listening in today as we talked with Emma from Final. I hope you found this show really helpful if you're in the process of pursuing a more purposeful business. Next week, we have Rita Katona, founder of So Good, So You. That will be a fantastic conversation. And if you have any questions, comments, or want to be on the show, please email me personally at j@weareunconquered.co.